Hello, my name is Alicia Davis, and the book essay video that I'm going to be doing is Feminist Theory from Margin to Center by Bell Hooks. So, just to give a little background information on Bell Hooks, who's the author, is that her real name is Gloria Jean Watkins. And an interesting fact that I actually read about her too was that her pen name is Bell Hooks, and that solidifies her mother and her grandmother's name put together. And so she was getting questions on, why don't you ever, uppercase, your first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name. And she was like, well, these are incorporated. My mom and grandmother's name is both incorporated in this. So she wanted kind of to stand out, if you would, So I thought that was pretty interesting because it's like a hidden message in it. And I've never heard of that. So that was interesting to me. So she was born September 25th, 1952 in Hopkins, Kentucky. She has a BA in English, and she received that at Stanford University. She's an author, she's a social activist, and she's a feminist as well. So just to give a little, background information on the book itself, I just took some notes down on things that stood out to me after my reading. So the first thing was that throughout the book, she would include topics, and she would include the goal of feminist movement that she was trying to accomplish. And it was more so she was trying to just unite women in a whole and to bring us all together and to not have competition. That was her biggest thing, was we don't need to compete with each other. We don't need to make it seem as if we're better than the next person, because we are all still one at the end of the day. Another point she touched on throughout the book was the role of men and how they were kind of labeled as being sexist, saying that, men didn't feel that women belonged in certain areas, and that, typical, they belong in the kitchen, or they belong doing some housework or raising the kids. And she kind of wanted to change the idea of how a man, viewed a woman, to say that, what men can do, women can do, if not even better. And that's what she discussed a lot in the book, was she didn't label men as being sexist, but she would just say this is what the people are saying. And she wanted to change that because she knew men in her life that she would talk about in the book that weren't sexist and believed that a woman can do just as much as they could. Something else that stood out for me from the book was that she had mentioned she wanted to change the nature of revolution. And what she explained on that in the book was basically saying the world that she grew up in and lived in as a whole, she wanted not necessarily to change it, but she wanted to open the minds of those that were so closed-minded and didn't understand that the world is limitless to what you can actually do if you come together, if you unite, and if you just kind of leave all the negativity out of trying to make the world a better place. She wasn't trying to change the perception of people. She was just trying to get them to see it through a different light, if you would say. Lastly, something that stuck out to me was the part in her title of her book, From Margin to Center. She said that was kind of the meaning of Black Americans, and how she described it was basically saying, before they didn't have much control, and so they weren't really a focus until they took back control and they were the center of focus. So I thought that was really cool, because to me, after just reading and then her telling the things about her name, it shows she has a lot of hidden messages and things that you wouldn't necessarily just pick up on if you don't read, and then two, if you don't listen to or when she writes things, to really take it all in and be I've heard that before. So I thought it was really cool that she incorporated that into her title, but it has a much deeper meaning behind it. So I wrote some quotes down. The first quote that I wrote down was, "There will be no mass-based feminist movement as long as feminist ideas are understood only by a well-educated few." To me, that meant the ones, that are educated, that are in the feminist movement, it was more so like she was saying it's their job to educate those who, either like education or who have never been taught on that subject. So it was up to them to either help or to kind of go with the flow, and then you have a mix of people that one know what they're doing and some that don't know what they're doing, and so you kind of have a variety of just many ideas spaced out around that don't really all come together. So that's what I took from that quote. The next one I have is, since we live in a society that promotes fatalism and temporarily superficial adaptation of different values, we are easily convinced that change have occurred in arenas where there has been little or no change. That was like, to me, that was, and to me, it's so simple for me, because it meant without change or without progress, there's no change. And what I mean by that personally is if you're not putting the work in towards it, then it's going to show that there was no change from the beginning, when there were all these ideas thrown out. Okay, we need to change this and change this. But if no one's putting the work in around, it's not going to be much change from how it used to be or how it used to look. So that's what I took away from that one. The next quote is, self-hate to vent anger and rage at injustice at one another rather than to oppressive forces to hurt and abuse one another, or to lead one ethnic group to more or no effort to communicate with another. To me, I took away from that, and this is just my opinion, without communication and without really understanding everybody's point of view of the situation at hand that's talked about, then it's not going to go the way it's supposed to go. Because either no one's going to listen or everyone's going to try to overtalk someone. And it goes back to some of the things that she talked about in the book of, okay, this person may think they're better than me because they're more educated, or this person just wants to be the center of attention because that's what they're used to doing, and no one stopped them thus far. The last quote that I wrote down, we tend to witness and or experience racism or classism as we encounter the larger society, the world outside the home. I chose that one for my last one just to talk about, because that to me relates to things that are going on in today's society. Just based off my experience and things that I've seen too, we do these things to where we want help, but we're not taking accountability for the help that we want. We say we want change, but we're not willing to change things when someone's telling us, hey, okay, you change this, and then, we're going to come together. Or we want things done when we want them done, not when they say, okay, it may have to get pushed back, but we're going to get it done. So to me, it was, and I'm kind of on the fence of it. It's like I agree with it, but then again, I don't, just because it's basically saying, on one hand, to me, we want help, but what are we doing to get that help? And then on the other hand, it's like, okay, you guys need to come on because time's ticking. So I'm on the fence about both of them, but I really do like this because I feel like it relates to how things are now in society, and how, there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of classism going on, and we encounter all that in today's society to the point to where it's like time is just repeating itself, history is just repeating itself, and until we make that change, it's gonna continue to just keep happening, and it's gonna start at home. Like the quote said, the world is outside the home. So it's going to start in the home, and we bring those traits and tools that we've learned in home outside in the world to change what's going on out there, or at least to make a difference. So basically for me, Bell Knox in this book, it was more so a diary and notes of her just saying that women can come together, men can come together, everyone in the world can come together and unite, but we have to like put the work in. We have to use the tools given to us in order to do that, because one person can make a difference, but it's a whole different effect when multiple people come together and unite and try to make that difference. So I thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a blessed day.